really unlucky, really unfortunate, Lewis, wasn't he, last time out? Marco Bezzecchi has been very contrite, very apologetic, said it was not in his, it wasn't his intention to try and make a move on Bez at that particular turn 7 on that first lap. But clearly Mark coming out the worst of that particular collision.
One weekend in the season where he does qualify slightly deep down the field and finds himself in the middle of the chaos. Of course, he gets tagged by Marco Bezzecchi. I have to say, very classy from Marc Marquez too on the Sunday evening as we now ride on board with Pecco Bagnaia for a Grand Prix that started badly and only got worse. But Marc Marquez very keen to get any heat off Marco Bezzecchi, saying, hey, Marco Bezzecchi apologise. We've all done that, of course, in our careers over the years, so please no heat on Marco for that.
This is going to be a painful watch inside that factory, the Ducati garage right now. For Pecco Bagnaia, in the space of a week, went from top dog in Japan, winning the sprint from pole position and winning the Grand Prix, top dog to dog slow, wasn't he, in Mandalika? What on earth happened over in Indonesia for Bagnaia? Way down the grid, dead last and almost 30 seconds behind Bezzecchi in the sprint. And then he just went from bad to worse, crashing out late on from last place in the Grand Prix. This is going through turn 18. I'm sure Pecco is trying to sort of avert his gaze from the screens right now. Chris, were you as bemused, as bamboozled as what we were to see Bagnaia, a double MotoGP world champion, go from winning everything in Japan to going to from front to the back of the grid in the space of 7 days? I mean, I've been here 30 years. You've been around racing a long time. I've never seen anything like it.
Not like that. And I've been at the front of racing, been at the back, and it does happen, but it doesn't happen that quickly, right? And that crash in Mandalika, that last corner, it's almost like he just fell off the side of the bike. It was quite interesting, wasn't it? And that's a guy with just no confidence. There's some Aussie wildlife for you. Welcome down under, everyone. Yeah, you don't want to see that when you're doing 330 k's an hour down the straight.
Top of front there.
Yeah. Well, we Ryder okay. Is that Wallaby okay as well? Pretty rapid at that part of the Phillip Island circuit. Bagnaia, he spoke to the media yesterday. He was kind of like edging his bets, really. He said, well, if I had the front end confidence that I had in Japan, I'll be fighting for the victory. But if I feel like I did in Mandalika, just finishing will be a result, which is very bizarre, almost a little bit defeatist before we even get going.
Well, and isn't it strange? I thought, hearing from the outside and what Ducati is saying, we found something, and Motegi was sensational, the speed, and it looked like the old Pecco and confidence. I think it was just purely track layout that suited him, and then you go somewhere where they got a trail break a lot more again, and then just lost that confidence.
I do wonder for Pecco Bagnaia as well. When he spoke to our colleague Elliot Yoris today, he said he'll know on the first lap of free practice 1 this morning whether he's back on the kind of form that he was in Japan. But the question I'd then have to Pecco Bagnaia is, if the answer to that is no, what then?
What do you do all weekend?
I
know, there's a lot of sessions, there's a lot of laps, this is a fast track, it takes a lot of commitment, so if you're not feeling good, it's going to be a very long, painful weekend.
How awesome was it last time out in Mandalika just to see this rider back at the front, battling for the podium as he was on that factory MR. Great to see, of course, Alex Rins, who's got a fantastic record around this Phillip Island circuit. Wins in all 3 classes, in Moto3, Moto2, and in that classic here 3 years ago in 2022. 10th of the line in Mandalika he was at the checkered flag. He might have a sub-5 grip late on, as Alex. Only his second top 10 in 18 starts this season. Aside from all the headlines, though, that were going the way of the factory Ducati team for the wrong reasons, Marc Marquez injured, Pecco Bagnaia having a disaster. Well, one Ducati rider did really bring his A-game to Mandalika. A historic day for Fermin Aldeguer, the second youngest MotoGP winner in history, our first rookie to take the checker flag first in the Premier Class. You saw Martin Asturia back in 2021. And there's been no rookie that's won back-to-back races since Marc Marquez all the way back in 2013. And this, Lewis, is a Phillip Island circuit where in Moto2 Aldeguer was sensational.
Won last year, should have won the year before that, but for the weather on the Sunday when he was dominating in the dry. How much of that was Aldeguer and how much of that was the Boscoscuro, which has been so good in Moto2 over the years? I guess we'll find out this weekend with Fermin on a Ducati. It's impressive any time a MotoGP rookie wins, because you say it happens so infrequently, but to win it like that, the winning margin was 7 seconds, it was nearer 10 before he started celebrating on the final lap. And it does beg the question, even without Marco Bezzecchi's disastrous start, could he have beaten Fermin Aldeguer with the kind of performance he was putting in the Grand Prix? He won by a mile.
It's been impressed watching that Aldeguer performance, Chris. I mean, he made it look very, very easy. We know it's not at this level. Only the sixth rookie to win the modern MotoGP era.
Oh, it was unreal, but he's shown the pace during the season. Qualifying has been their Achilles heel, and when you do qualify deep in the field and you've got to make passes on the best riders in the world, it slows your progress, especially when you've got to try and catch someone like Marc Marquez or Alex Marquez that have been so dominant this year. But no, Furman's race there. It's like they put all the pieces together. The whole weekend finally come together and he showed his speed. And I think you're right. Would Bez have been able to challenge him? Because I think Furman still had more in there, you know, and he just rode around and did what he needed to do.
Yeah, it took him 6 or 7 laps to find his way through on a very sort of resolute and determined Pedro Acosta. Once he did so, well, it was a race of one, wasn't it, over a Manulica. He performs exceptionally well, does Aldeguer, when the Michelin tyre options are their parts of the season. You go back to the Red Bull Ring in Austria when we had to have the heat-resistant tyres. He was second in the Grand Prix and really started to mount a charge towards Marc Marquez over in the steering mount. And of course, he had the heat-resistant rubber last time out in Manulica, second in the sprint, winning the Grand Prix from the front row.
I think it's a little bit of his crew chief, Frankie Carcetti, the way they work, setting the bike up. Frankie really works on race distance and managing and getting the most out. And of course, he's got a young rider that he's teaching there. So I think that works, but to put a whole weekend together, you've got to be able to do that one-lap speed as well, which is hoping that he's going to be able to manage.
And Aldeguer is like a sponge as well. When you're 20 years of age, you're just absorbing all that experience, all that info, all that knowledge from somebody like Frankie Carcetti, who's now won MotoGP races, what, with 4 different riders, the Gian Antonio, Marc Marquez, and one here previously. So he's in pretty good company, this Furman Aldeguer, with Frankie Carcetti.
On board with Pedro Acosta at the moment, and as you mentioned, it was Acosta that Furman Aldeguer managed to find his way through after 5 or 6 laps, and we saw later on the race just how difficult that was to achieve. Several had a go at it. Luca Marini had a go at it. Alex Rins had a go at it. Alex Marquez the same. In the end, none of them could ultimately beat Pedro Acosta to that second place.
Well, of course, MotoGP fans all around the world are wishing a very speedy recovery to Marc Marquez. We can get an update on his current situation and potentially some thoughts as well on Pecco Bagnaia's Manulica struggles. I'm glad to say we're joined by Ducati boss Mauro Grassilli, who joins Jack. Good morning, gentlemen.
Yeah, good morning to everybody. We've come to the back of the boxes just to get a little bit of refuge from the wind and the chill here at Phillip Island on Friday morning. As Bertie was saying, Mauro, it's a huge shame that the world champion Marc isn't here. Since we last had the chance to speak to both Marc and Davide after the crash in Manulica, the situation has evolved slightly, so the injury itself is obviously a little bit more complex than what you could have feared with slight ligament damage. In terms of a timeline on recovery, have you got any idea as to how long it might take for Marc to get some movement back and to start training again?
So from the beginning, we knew that there was maybe some information about the situation, but as I said before, I'm not ready to give you the day when we see Marc.
Without knowing the date exactly, I know that Dr. Untitled Chapter, MotoGP's medical director, was speaking yesterday and said that he feels that it's very unlikely that we'll see Marc in Portimao. Would you go along with that?
I don't know about Portimao. As I told you, we speak with them, we daily have a contact with them, but we are that in Malaysia. When we see Marc, we will have more information.
Just on Pecco Bagnaia, we spoke to him yesterday and he said he didn't have any answers for what happened in Manulica. He said that after speaking with us, he was going to have a meeting with Ducati to try and hopefully get some answers for what happened. So, what was said in that meeting, have you found some answers as to how a world champion like Bagnaia can go from being at the top of the grid to the bottom of the grid in the space of 7 days?
This is a very good question. We don't have answer because we're working a lot. We're working a lot about the situation. Yeah, Pecco did a very good job in Italy. Not the same in Manulica. we'll see here. But we are so positive about this, but we don't know what's going on in Mandalika, honestly.
To do with the package provided, or do you think with more to do with the rider on the bike? Because it been strange that a Ducati that's been so dominant for the past few years can be so far down the grid.
But it's usually the mix between bike and rider. So we don't know if the problem is the bike or the problem is the rider. We try all together. We try with Pecco to find a good solution for this race. So we'll see. We'll see in the next days.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. Thanks to Ducati boss Mauro Grassini. Well, unfortunately, the early signs are not very positive, are they? For it was a very frustrated Pecco Bagnaia who came straight in from his outlet. We've got yellow flags out here.
Turn 2, I think.
I think something might have gone down the southern limits. Frankie Morbidelli. Been a punishing start for a couple of the VR46 Academy riders. Frankie gives a thumbs up to the marshals. What's a fast old get off there? Down into the Doohan corner.
There is a bit of wind coming, I was just going to say, getting underneath the bike. So, yeah, coming in from the west there, and it would be difficult to turn. It'll be interesting to see here. Frankie's wide there, he's offline, and he's just trying to turn the bike. I think he's getting load into the front tyre, and down she goes.
It's a rapid old get off that one on that run down into the Doohan corner. Decelerating from about 350 kilometres an hour out into a third gear, 185 kilometres an hour, Doohan corner. That's a little bit worrying, Chris. Pecco Bagnaia coming straight into the box, looking really frustrated, very angry, very agitated, making all kinds of hand gestures to his crew. A little bit worrying, you have to say.
Very worrying, especially with what Lewis said before about, I'll know after the first lap if we're going to be fast or not, but he knows, and it looked like a stability thing, the way he was moving it, and the wind around here, the high-speed nature of the corners of Phillip Island, to make the bike turn and go fast, with all this aerodynamics on the bike as well when it's windy, really difficult to get it set right, and we know how crucial it seems like that 25 Ducati will really run on a knife's edge, and if you don't get it right, very hard to ride.
So much of the talk around Pecco Bagnaia this season has been about riding through problems in many respects. There's been talk even from Davide Tardozzi that Pecco's in many respects just got to ride the bike that he's been given. Is that a very individual thing in terms of some riders can just ride through problems like Marc Marquez has throughout the season. Some riders just simply can't go through that mental block.
I think you just mentioned it there. Marc Marquez could ride a tractor and probably did pretty well. Like he can get around situations, he's able to do it. Pecco seems like a rider that he needs that right feel. And everyone needs to be comfortable in some area because that's where you're going to be strong on the bike. But yeah, it looks like Pecco Bagnaia, for whatever reason, cannot get the feeling to turn in well with you.
Well, you know what that's like for us. I mean, I think Alex Marquez touched on this yesterday. Alex, of course, trying to field second in the World Championship against Bagnaia. Alex said yesterday, vitally, you have to have the confidence and trusting your motorcycle around. If you're too tight, too hesitant, or not feeling it, you can be really, really struggling around it. It's a full commitment circuit.
It's so much commitment around this place that the speed going into turn one, like you said, 185 k's in the middle of the corner at your slowest point, you have to open so much throttle before you stop slowing down. So you have to have confidence to know that you're opening 300 horsepower to stop slowing down. Yeah, a lot of commitment around here.
Well, so far we've seen a rather frustrated Pecco Bagnaia start this Australian Grand Prix. What's going on inside the gap right now, Jack?
Yeah, there is absolutely no way on this earth that the plan for on Friday morning was for Bagnaia to go out on his number one bike, do one flying lap, and take the tyres out and chuck it straight into the number two bike. They're just prepping the number two bike. It's taking so long because Bagnaia has caught the team off guard. They weren't expecting him to come in after one flying lap and to move on to the number two. So often you see both Bagnaia and Marquez in this morning session just go out and do lap after lap, just try and get some life into the tyres to try and get an understanding for the remainder of the weekend. But clearly they've had to change plans very quickly. Bagnaia in the back of the box with a 1,000-mile stare. He looked very, very ugly at the opening 5 minutes of this session.
Just cannot seem to catch any kind of a break recently. Japan aside, of course, Pecco Bagnaia, second round in the last three in Mandalika. He didn't score a single point. That's only the third time that's happened with Le Mans last year and Mazzano as well. Still then a frustrated spectator at the back of that factory, the Ducati garage.
And if you ask me, I for them to sit in and change bikes, it's a major change. So it's a major geometry change, something big they want to try on the motorcycle that's not easy to turn around quickly. So they've got the two bikes set up differently. He obviously went out, didn't like that first lap. We'll go and have a go on this one now and see where it's very different and see if there's any positives we can take from it and move forward.
The team will just be hoping that he stays out for longer than one. If they see him coming back in again, they're going to be, oh God, this one doesn't work either.
The mechanics might work overtime in that garage this weekend.
I think his problems that he's been having since he won in Japan, I think the win in Japan has almost made it worse because he captured that lightning in a bottle somehow by winning the Japanese Grand Prix in such dominant fashion, won the sprint, won the Grand Prix, led every lap and both from pole position. Thought he finally got to the root of the problems, but he's just reverted back to the struggles of early season again. And I asked the question yesterday whether ultimately Mandalika was something of an anomaly, because we did see a few weird results across the field in that weekend, but whether ultimately for Pecco Bagnaia it was Japan that was the anomaly, and he's actually the same Pecco who's been struggling for much of 2025.
Yeah, it's not a new experience, this is it for Bagnaia. He was never really happy with the GP25 package throughout winter testing. I mean, they were still changing the bike as late as the Borough test, weren't they, on the final day of pre-season. Well, we talked about some of our absentees. Let's talk about some of those riders that are coming in to replace our missing stars. Michele Pira, of course, we touched upon him replacing Marc Marquez this weekend, and Mauro Grasili confirming that Pira will be also on Mark's bike next time out in Sepang. Lorenzo Savadori, how many times has he had to be called up by the factory Aprilia team over the last couple of years or so? Savadori then back replacing Jorge Martin. We just saw him there on screens. Paul Espargaro, who I'm sure is dealing with a lot more jet lag than most, because he was on holiday with his wife in New York for a few days. So he's an almighty time swing as Paul. He's back on a Tech 3 RC16, replacing Maverick Vinales.
He's doing a great job, isn't he? 1 second off the pace at the moment. And Marco Bezzecchi, that shows you confidence. You know, Marco is a rider that's really the last few rounds has impressed me a lot, but already into the mid-28s, already in the first session, 15 minutes of it gone. It's very, very fast lap times. But Paul, to be on holidays and come back here and already be doing a 29, good job, I reckon.
And he said yesterday there's probably 2 circuits on the calendar where if you have any kind of time off the bike, like he has, there's probably 2 tracks where you're thinking, well, I'm not sure I want to be stepping back into the fray just right now. Magellan and Phillip are the ones that he said, but you know he's going to be
spot on there. He's spot on there. His commitment, his bravery, but yeah, he's obviously a fast rider. He's been a podium finisher in Grand Prix and a key to KTM's development. So knows the bike very well. But yeah, to get out here, the weather conditions are never ideal around here. That's what adds to it as well. The wind will change direction. It'll be coming a different way tomorrow. But we are lucky that everyone is on slick tires now and the sun is out. It was patchy earlier.
Very safe pair of hands in the Paul Espargaro. No about that here. Marco Bezzecchi is impressing once again. He puts on the fact that in his own bruising crash after the contact with Marc Marquez sort of aggravated the back injuries he was carrying after whacking up his teammate Martin at turn 1 in the sprint over in Japan. At the moment, no obvious ill effects, and capitalising on what are some rather pleasant weather conditions at the moment. Not sure how much longer this will hold out for. There are some concerns, particularly about some very, very strong gusts on Sunday, particularly at AM on Sunday morning. Gusts predicting around 75 kilometres an hour. Of course, 2023 here at the Australian Grand Prix. Had to switch the schedule. The Grand Prix took place on Saturday, unfortunately. We did not get a sprint in 2023 here as the weather really did take a turn for the worse on Sunday. That race, of course, won brilliantly by Johan Zarco in that last lap thriller.
Of course, if we're going to get any kind of repeat of that, they'd have to make a decision on that this evening. And of course, we need to know by the time we arrive tomorrow what kind of weekend we're actually going to have and how the format of it is going to play out. Pecco Bagnaia is now on the board. He's in 20th place on a 132.3, so Ducati at least haven't seen Pecco Bagnaia back in the box again after one time lap. And is this now where the 2-time MotoGP World Champion actually starts to build his Australian Grand Prix weekends on the bottom?
Yeah, Alex Wynn was telling the media yesterday that there'll be the traditional Friday afternoon Riders Safety Commission meeting where the schedule, a possible change in the schedule will be discussed if required. Of course, the officials, the organisation here in cooperation with Dornan will be keeping a very close eye on the weather, which we know can change from minute to minute here. Phillip Islands. 4 seasons in one day, they say in this part of the world, don't they?
The famous one I saw was, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. But yeah, no, it is changeable down here. We're right on the edge of the coast. Beautiful when the weather is good, but yeah, it can change very quickly.
The late great Barry Good, what's called this the way to hypothermia, didn't he?
And he had a way with words. So it was very entertaining on air commentator. Obviously, great motorcycle racer in his day too, but funny bloke, I can tell you that.
He really was. You had the pleasure of spending a bit of time in the company of Barry way back down the years. Bagnaia then has just completely spiffed up in the second. He's been to the 130s now, the 130.964. Looking sharp once again on that factory of Aprilia. How impressed have you been, Chris, particularly in the second half of the season, with how much progress Aprilia and Bezzecchi have made? It's been a real tough season on Marco. Of course, he had to do so much of the development work on his own with Roy Martin missing for so much of the season. But Massimo Riva was talking up Aprilia's prospects in between Angelique and this weekend in Australia. They feel that they can take the fight Mark and Ducati in 2026,
and they're not wrong. That's definitely not out of the question. Here he is, obviously double long lap penalty coming to him on the race on Sunday, so he's having to practice on it now. Say anyone maybe he will, and the chances are he's going to fall from the front row of the grid and have the speed to challenge for the victory around here. But doing a double long lap penalty, that's really going to make work hard. But no, I've been very impressed with Aprilia. To me, it's the second best motorcycle. If Ducati's #1 standout, it's the one that can challenge them in certain situations, and they don't have as many bikes on the grid. And Marco Bezzecchi has really had to step up this year. He was, let's face it, to come in as #2 rider, to learn from Jorge Martin, the world champion. And I mean, he's just taken the reins and delivered. And a lot of the information or where that bike's going will be coming from what he does on the motorcycle. And he's been consistent. He hasn't been throwing it down the road too often. He's shown speed in qualifying laps, in race distance, managing tyres. It's been very impressive. He's a young guy that could challenge for a world championship.
Converting pole into sprint victory in 2 of the last 3 Grand Prix weekends, and you feel that Bezzecchi will surely be targeting the sprint tomorrow. Assuming the sprint is tomorrow, of course, which as we speak to you now it is. There's real opportunity. The double on lap penalty will be served in the full-length Grand Prix scheduled for Sunday afternoon. And I do think had it just been the 1 long lap penalty, Bezzecchi could still potentially have fought the victory from there. With 2 long laps, which is essentially a 6-second handicap, surely that is too uphill for even Marco Bezzecchi to climb.
Rapinder 4th last time out in Mandalika, only the second top 6 of the campaign for the 30-year-old South African. Of course, he was right in that podium fight, right in the victory fight here in 2023. He has just gone to the top of the time sheets, as you can see, a 128.654 from Binder. Got a section speaking to his crew in Mandalika and here in Australia. That 4th place was a result that Binder really needed just to sort of inject some momentum, some confidence into him for the latter part of the season. A few rumours circulating that he might not Binder dispensing with his long-serving crew chief Andres Madrid, but KTM may be looking to instigate a change, maybe just bring some fresh motivation, some new eyes into the party. Let's feel Maroff. Last out the Ogilvy's BMW World Superbike crew chief will remain as been mentioned with Brad Binder. We'll be seeing South Africa up there again, Chris.
Oh, great to see him. He's a great fella too, isn't he? Yeah, good fun bloke. But no, great to see him, and he can ride a motorcycle, and he's got grit and determination. He's a proper racer. He'll have a real go. I'm just interested to see what Pecco Bagnaia's body language is going to be when he comes in the garage here, and have we made any progress? But no, going back to Brad Binder, that it is good. It's good to see him. If you can, and Pecco's right in a way. If you can be fast in your first couple of runs around Phillip Island, it sort of sets your weekend for something to build from. The guy we had to chase was Casey Stoner back in the day. No one ever saw which way he went, but yeah, I'm sure, and I know Casey's around this weekend. I wonder if Pecco is going to be trying to find him and see if he can help at all with getting this Ducati going around the circuit.
Went to Mazzano, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. He's just not looking. He's not looking like the old Pecco. He doesn't look like he's got confidence to push the motorcycle.
I guess in those days when Casey was just on a different level here in Phillip Island, I mean, look at this. Wow, he's almost shaking his own teeth out there, isn't he? Pecco Bagnaia, another shake of the head with a shrug of the shoulders when he came back into the garage. I think it's fair to say there's been no dramatic improvement with the performance of that GP25 as a rider frustrated, stopped with the pit wall there as far as Davide Tardozzi's gone. I think Tardozzi's heard enough. He's coming to the pit wall, right? No, don't want to hear any more. Jack, lots of very disgruntled body language. Probably 63.
Yeah, I could hear Bagnaia coming in, and even with the bikes on the start finish straight behind me, even with the helmet on, I can hear him shouting at Christian Gabbierini. Niente, Italians for nothing. Put the feet in the air. Then, as we saw on the TV cameras there, showcasing the fact he was having so much stability problems, so many big shakes on the motorcycle. Davide Tardozzi listened to about 5 words and quickly knew, okay, we're in a big amount of trouble here. He didn't have to listen to any more to understand that the same problems that Pecco Bagnaia had in Mandalika have rolled on here into Phillip Island. And as you said earlier in the session, Lewis, I mean, he's having problems now. We've still got the weekend to go. Where on earth do these guys go from here?
It is a massive conundrum, isn't it? What is going on that side of the factory, the Ducati garage right now? On another GP25, it's Fabio Di Gianantonio who's enjoying his F. He won a lot more than Bagnaia currently at the moment. Digia up into 3rd place with a 128.691. Binder, it is, still leads on the factory cadence. Busy morning so far for Binder. Actually, he's done 12 laps already in this morning session, and he won the rider into the double figures at Tomcat Chantra.
I love this Stoner corner. It's so yeah, exactly. Look at that. That's and when it goes sideways like that as a motorcycle rider and you're having a good time, I mean, that is KCS, isn't it? And that's the way you turn a motorbike at high speed, with big commitment.
That is awesome. What an amazing shot that is of Acosta going through Stoner corner. Yeah, I think Casey himself would part of that one, Chris.
Yeah, well, I would be too. I'd definitely take that. But I got to say, Pedro Acosta, it's been an up and down year. I expected more, to be honest. I thought KTM and him would bring something. I know that you know, away from racing, KTM hasn't had the greatest start to a year as a company, but it seems like everything's leveled out now. Pedro has shown a little bit more speed, but they don't really have it to go for race wins.
Yeah, I think in the first half of the season, Acosta, by his own ambition, was incredibly frustrated with the fact that the RC16 just wasn't at the level. It wasn't a bike that was
You
going
could
to
see
match.
that.
Yeah, you could see that. It wasn't a bike that matched his ambitions. And he admitted himself, he said, from the summer break onwards, I think they had a bit of a sit-down, didn't they? Behind closed doors, clearing of the air between Acosta and the KTM management. There was all that rumour, wasn't it? He was trying to force a move to BR46. It's almost like there's a switch being clicked in his brain. He feels like he's a more mature approach in the second half of the season. He's kind of accepted that, well, this is the bike I've got to ride. It's not going to change dramatically for the remainder of the season. He's just cracking on with the job and getting his head down. And super impressive ride by him in Mandalika. I mean, what a...
And didn't he fight? I said his teammate was a fighter. He's proven he's definitely out there as well. And he's a racer's racer, which we love to see. And that's why we watch MotoGP. But like you touched on before, sometimes bringing that fresh blood in, whether it's a crew chief or a rider. And I think the Tech 3 guys with Bastianini and Vinales on there, it's bringing other information, what they used on different motorcycles. And it takes time for all that to filter through. But it looks like KTM is in the right path now.
In its own way, every bit as impressive as his fellow Mercian Fermin Aldeguer in Indonesia to take that 2nd place, as the Indonesian government are trying to appoint him as their new defence minister, given how much he spent of that Grand Prix defending. As mentioned, there were several riders who had a crack at him during that Indonesian Grand Prix. None of them could beat it once Fermin Aldeguer had disappeared off of the road to still take that 2nd place. Alex Marquez in the end admitted he had nothing for Pedro Acosta in the latter part of that Grand Prix. His crew chief Paul Travachan summed it up very well when he spoke to Jack Wing at the Grand Prix. He said he rode like an animal.
Yeah, Paul Travachan said, didn't he, it was Pedro Acosta and Pedro Acosta is lonesome that put that KTM on the podium. He's almost like a rookie coming here this weekend as Acosta. Of course, FP1 last year was washed out. They missed all of that track time on Friday morning. FP2 was wet, and then we, of course, went into Sprint Saturday, and he had a big crash at Siberia. A real vicious soft throttle high side, was damaged his shoulder. He then missed the Grand Prix, so he comes here lacking a lot of dry track time in MotoGP, does Acosta. Doesn't seem to slow him down previously in his Grand Prix career. But to be fair to him, we might be looking at Alex Marquez here, coming through the final corner to set the fastest time in the morning as Bagnaia is about to venture out on circuit. what he hopes is going to be a more competitive GP25. Alex does indeed pick up a bit of pace up to fourth with a 1:28.723. Of course, Chris Mark has popped so many headlines this year, justifiably so. But how impressed have you been with Alex? It looks like it's a given almost now that he's going to wrap up second in the World Championship. He really has stepped up to the plate. Of course, he's on the GP24, which is the most dominant motorcycle of last season. One of the best bikes we've ever seen. Did you expect to see this?
No, I didn't expect it, and I'm rapt for him because I think he gets a hard time because the last name and who his brother is, right? And finishing second to Mark, and how much does he slow down for Mark and all that? I think Alex Marquez has done a sensational job. He is a double world champion in his own right, and he's won MotoGP races now, and he's deserved them, and he's beaten everybody, including his brother at times. So no, it's been very impressive, and his consistency. He had that little lull for a couple of races there where he missed out, but then sort of from Barcelona onwards, come back with that dominant win and in a very impressive season. And to knock Pecco Bagnaia, we know Pecco's struggle street at the moment, but to be knocking him off consistently and putting championship points onto him, it's been very impressive.
22 podiums and counting as far as Alex is concerned. That's why he does look like a massive favourite to take second in the championship. We thought he was going to take top spot on the previous lap. Well, this time around he has done it. A 1:28.317 puts Alex comfortably clear now at the top of the timesheets. Only Binder, Bezzecchi and Didier up in within half a second.
He came out of the last turn a lot better on that lap. The previous lap made a little mistake in the middle and lost some corner speed. And there's so much time you lose from turn 12 here at Phillip Island because that run down the straight is a long way.
He takes second place then on a 28.6, so it's now Ducati, Aprilia, KTM, Honda. Your top four. Joan Zarco into fourth place, and of course with no Marc Marquez here this weekend, no Maverick Vinales, and of course no Jorge Martin, the sprint winner from last season. It leaves just Joan Zarco and Alex Rins, the 2022 winner on board Suzuki, as the only Australian Grand Prix winners in the field here this weekend.
Every time I look at a rider coming through turn 12, my mind just goes back to Marco Melandri. 2006, power sliding, smoke off that rear tyre coming through the final quarter, one-handed with the victory salute. You'd have been in that race.
I was second.
Yeah, I was going to say you were second.
I was second, so I didn't see it because Marco was that far in front of himself. I had to see it on a replay, and now it keeps getting shown as one of the best moments. It was a good moment for me. I was second. Valentino Rossi was third, and the crowd was singing on the podium, Vermeulen and kicked Rossi's ass, dude, which I'll never forget. But that moment from Marco Melandri, I mean, I said, what a risk, Marco. Like, he goes, I did it in pre-season testing somewhere for a photographer, so I knew I could do it. And I thought, well, I was hoping that it would go a little bit wrong and I might move one place up, but no, a very cool slide.
I think that last corner, that celebration should just get Marco Melandri inducted into the Hall of Fame immediately.
I'll vote for that.
Yeah. So Bagnaia then now, that is a PB lap from Pecco, up to 13th now with a 1:29.677. The exact same lap time that's been fired in by Paul Espargaro. Vinales' injury replacement. And while we're talking about Aussies, or with an Aussie who's had podium success here, beating Valentino Rossi around Phillip Island, which was no mean defeat. What about the other Aussie? Jack Miller out on circuits. The 10th at the moment for Jack, a 1:29.462.
Interesting talking to Jack. He's obviously ridden a lot of bikes in the last few years. He's been on the Honda, the Ducati, KTM, and now with the Yamaha. He said the way the Yamaha it works better in wind. It doesn't get affected as much as some of the other bikes he's ridden by the wind. So, well, that's what I said. So he seemed quite confident. He thought we might be able to use that to our strength. But he's trying some different sort of, I don't know what you want to call it. He's got things bolted on his tank where he can rest his legs against. Try something different around here at Phillip Island this weekend. So he's still trying to get comfortable on that bike. But yeah, loving his time on the Yamaha, loving working in development and moving the bike forward, and very excited about that V4 coming.
His experience is going to be so important, of course, having ridden V4s for so much of his career. Of course, coming into MotoGP, he's going to be learning MotoGP for next season. So important to have his experience when you are developing a new project.
I imagine that's one of the key reasons why Yamaha kept him in that spot. His information's good, his testing is good, he's consistently out there doing the same thing on the motorcycle, and that brings a lot of good information for the Japanese. And And yeah, he's very excited about getting that V4. He said this inline, just the way the Michelin tyre works, we just cannot get the grip. They're a bit closer when the tyre becomes very hard and the other manufacturers lose their grip advantage. But he said generally we just struggle, and they're very excited to get that new engine.
He's had some special moments in his home Grand Prix before, as Jack Miller, third in 2019, a race with him Moto3, and now 11 years ago in 2014, of course, 3 years ago, the special honour of having turn 4 named after him, and this weekend's a big one for Jack as well. It's his 250th Grand Prix start. He's been in MotoGP now for 10 years, and I spoke to him in the pre-event press conference yesterday. He said, I still feel the best years are ahead of me. Phillip, I've got plenty more to come. He's not looking at 2026 as being his last rodeo in MotoGP.
Well, we hope not as Aussies too, you know, because he's our only one we can cheer for at the moment in the Premier class. And yeah, he's going to put on a show this weekend. If he could do something special out of the whole year, if Jack could do it here, that's what he would love more than anything.
We certainly love watching it from the commentary box, as well as this is more like it, isn't it? From Bagnaia up into the top 10, finally into the 128s as well. And this could be potentially pushing him close to the top 6, if not better. Let's track the Italian over the line. It does indeed push him into E6, a 128.690.
The confidence just looks a little bit more. It's amazing, and there'll be small changes on these motorcycles, but that's the difference that can give the rider the feel. If they can feel the tyre, feel confident in pushing that tyre, they'll be able to, you know, take a few tenths of a second.
They won't be getting a hairdryer off them, they
He's already had the cold shoulder from him already in this morning session when Tardozzi stomped out of the Ducati box, having heard about 3 words from his, well, I guess, lone challenger this weekend. With all respect intended to Michele Pirro, of course, a class rider in his own right, but Ducati Lenovo's hopes do hinge and rest on the shoulders of Pecco Bagnaia this weekend. Of course, did clinch the team's championship last time out in Indonesia, but they looked anything but champions, with Marc Marquez, of course, in hospital and Pecco Bagnaia having all sorts of problems, but they did complete the Triple Crown once again in Indonesia a fortnight ago.
Japanese challenge is being led by Johan Zarco. Well, we know he has a very big love affair with this Phillip Island circuit. Who will never forget that first MotoGP success here in 2023 on the Saturday Grand Prix. The flip that followed as well, just out of Siberia, that got the Aussie fans whipped up into a frenzy, didn't it? Speaking of French, Fabio Quartararo over the line now in 8th place, and he was talking even pre-weekend yesterday for the media that he was possibly going to be looking at racing a soft tyre over the 27 laps here on Sunday. He felt like that was his best opportunity to maybe win for the first time in 3 years. Well,
that'll take some time management.
Yes, well, we saw what happened to Owen Martin a couple of years ago.
That's what I was thinking, and when it goes off, it's like it falls off a cliff. So it generates the tyre temperature. It generates around here on the left-hand side of the tyre, because the last part of the lap, the speed, the force that goes through the tyre, it's amazing, and it pushes these Michelins to the limit, definitely.
Piero Taramasso, Michelin Motorsport manager, saying yesterday that Phillip Island is the toughest test that they face during the whole year. And of course, we race in some baking hot tropical climates. We get the tyre sort of pressure that they get in Red Bull Ring as well. Bagnaia, well, that's a little bit more like it.
A more measured response from Bagnaia this time as he plants his backside in the chair.
Gabarini can take out the earplugs this time around. He doesn't need the ear defenders to get a barrel load out of Bagnaia. Down, then we go into turn 10. Yeah, we're just looking there at Fabio Quartararo. Chris, this feels like one of the most important sort of 6 or 7 months in Yamaha's recent history. We all know that probably talent-wise, Fabio Quartararo is right up there with Mark and Pedro Acosta. At the moment, the Yamaha's not a competitive motorcycle. If this V4 doesn't work out and doesn't hit the ground running next year in a contract year, you'd fear that Fabio will be looking for a pastures new, maybe?
You'd have to, wouldn't you? I know he's been paid a lot of money to stay at Yamaha, and it wasn't only the money that kept him there, but obviously it's a big enticer, and he'd be very happy to stay there and make this work. But if it doesn't, you've got to look elsewhere.
And we're going to welcome 2 rookies, of course, aren't we, in 2026? We've known for quite some time that what is most likely to be our 2026 or 2025 World Superbike champion, Top Rat Vazgat Lioglu, moving into Prima Planet Yamaha. Well, finally confirmed. This is no surprise news, is it? For a Moto2 type of contender, a Brazilian rising star, Diogo Moreira, will be moving in alongside Johan Zarco in the LCR Honda camp.
Moreira, winner, of course, in Indonesia a couple of weeks ago. Just 9 points now behind Manuel Gonzalez, who had a crash earlier on this morning in Moto2 for the World Championship in the intermediate class. As we see technicians, photographers, cameramen, everyone, including Tadej Tadotsi there in the middle of the picture with the grey hair, which I think has got even greyer this morning with Taco Banyaes of various issues. Although he has moved up the order now into 6th place. Just a bit of breaking news also to bring you regarding another MotoGP World Champion, Jorge Martin, of course, absent here this weekend for Aprilia. We have just had confirmation from Aprilia, which won't surprise many of you. Was absent this weekend. He will also miss next weekend's Malaysian Grand Prix.
Such a brutal year for Jorge, Chris. I mean, so much optimism, reigning world champion, moving to a new project, a figurehead at Aprilia, and then it all goes wrong 13 laps into 2025, and that set a chain of events in motion that he's really not been able to come out of, really.
If he didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any, would he? You know, and it's that simple. It's just, yeah, it's been a real shame, because I was excited to see what Martin could do on that motorcycle. Obviously a world champion. I know a couple of the guys working on his side of the garage, they were excited to get him in too and see where this bike can go, what's the potential with it. But even when he comes back, he's 6 months behind everyone else in bike time for the year, and like we just need some time to get understanding of the motorcycle, slowly move forward. But then another incident happens, and these injuries, they're unfortunate, they're a shame, and it'll be great to see him back. I hope he waits till he is 100% fit and healthy, get on the motorcycle, get testing, get working for next year, and come out firing then, because we've seen what Bez can do, we've seen how good the bike is. 2026 could be a year that he could have some race wins and hopefully challenge Marquez and Ducati.
That's the crying shame, isn't it? I'm sure nobody feels it more than Jorge. He can see that Aprilia right now is at the level to be winning Grand Prix, and we know that he's as good as Marco Bezzecchi, if not a little bit better. No disrespect to Bez, but
well, his previous results show that he's there every bit, isn't he? And perhaps more. And he's won that championship. He put a whole year together as a privateer in a privateer team, so he knows how to do it. I've got to say, you touched on Alex Rins earlier, and yeah, I'm one of those people that couldn't be happier to see him back. I mean, watching the guy hobble around the paddock, that leg injury from all those years ago is still giving him grief, and it has to be on the motorcycle. But when Alex Rins is on, and he's a guy that could start from the third or the fourth row of the grid here and be a contender in that race.
He did so. Started from 10th on the grid, didn't he, in 2022, and he won that Phillip Island Classic. What a race that was. We spoke in commentary in Mandalika saying how good it was to see Alex back up there, and how some of his MotoGP victories have been the best we've seen in recent history. I mean, the Silverstone Classic with Mark going all the way down to the last corner right here 3 years ago. As we mentioned, he's such a class act, is Alex, both on and off the bike. And let's hope he has finally turned the corner, and we're going to see him frequently back at the sharp end, because there's no doubt about it, he's got the class to do it.
Well, obviously I'm a Suzuki fan, and he did all that on the Suzuki as well, so yeah, I may have been cheering for that corner, but yeah, no, he is a class act on and off the bike, so yeah, we want to see him back fit and healthy.
He said after the Indonesian Grand Prix that he never stopped believing in himself. He knew he was still able to do those kind of things, but never really had the results to show for it. Of course, went for that soft rear tyre, much like his teammate Fabio Quartararo in Indonesia. It's fair to say Alex Rins both enjoyed the benefits and ultimately the payback for starting on that soft rear tyre, as he did pull it back down in the end to 10th place. But qualified in 4th place, his best weekend on board Apache Yamaha, you'd say, in the whole of 2025.
Oh, that's such a long time since we've seen him now as he runs up into the Durham corner, really at the sharp end of a Grand Prix for the first time, and since he was so brilliant in Austin on the LCR Honda in 2023, just before all this injury problem started.
Slow-mo here, Fabio Quartararo, turn 1, there you go. You were pretty much spot on with your corner speed there before, Matt, 185.
Have to get something right, actually.
I tell you, I didn't know, I wouldn't know what it was as a rider, but I tell you, it's very fast. And like I said earlier, because it is so fast, you have to open the throttle a lot more than you think, or more than other corners, to stop decelerating, because there's so much wind force against the motorcycle, and trying to make it turn as well. It's it's a tricky corner.
The theory is that Phillip Island is one of those iconic venues where rider talent can really make a difference. In modern day MotoGP, you know, people say, well, these electronics now take away the rider's skill. Do you agree? Do you still think that this Phillip Island circuit is one track on the calendar where it's just down to the talent and bravery of the rider that can really come to fore?
Very much so. Look, a motorcycle will make a difference. The better one will make it easier, but there's less places here they can use the rear ride height device out of corners, because one corner generally flows into another one. So there'll be a big section of the circuit. Like, they won't drop it there between turn 11 and 12 because there's no time for the ride height device to come back up. But they will probably drop it out of here, the last corner. So it's a bit more old school. It's a bit more riding a normal motorcycle, not one of these rocket ships, I guess you could say. So, yeah, so, you know, that comes into play. I think aerodynamics around here, because the speed is so high, if you can get an advantage out of that, it might really help these motorcycles. But yeah, corner speed, confidence, and making the bike being able to turn at high speed, get off the edge of the tyre and get up and get it driving, that's where you make the lap time around here.
We say it so often in racing, don't we? Fortune favours the brave. Well, it feels more prevalent than ever around Phillip Island. So many high-speed corners, as Chris mentioned. It's a very narrow circuit as well. It's not very wide at all. As we pick up Alex, this is 73 now, coming through the final corner. This will him be now winding up the wick up into sixth gear, well in advance of 330 kilometres an hour.
Just reeling off mid-28s, you know, like lap after lap. So they're already working on race runs. That's the problem with this place. You don't know what you're going to get weather-wise. They say it's going to be fine all day, but the wind could change. So this session is crucial for, you know, getting a feeling, getting an understanding. And good to see Pecco Bagnaia close at the moment, because I think if he can leave this session with some confidence and maybe a direction they're going to go for this circuit this weekend in bike setup, it might give him some hope for the rest of the weekend.
Well, at least it looks like FP1 is going to finish better for Pecco than it started. It couldn't have been worse. Not that way. I think he might as well just be like, right, get me a ticket out of Melbourne.
Yeah, I'll go straight to Kuala Lumpur if you don't mind. I'll see you next weekend, where of course he won last year, 28.7 for him, which is near enough the lap time he's done already in the session. He's done a 28.690. Bagnaia in sixth place. You referenced the conditions, Chris. The temperature today is already around about 10 degrees cooler than it was yesterday. The temperature then expected to go back up again on Sunday into the low 20s, in addition to the high winds as well. And how much does the changing conditions change the behaviour of the bike, and how easy is it to change the conditions rather than just focus on each session as it is?
Well, you're spot on there, and the conditions can even change in the race. I think in about 2015 or 16, Marc Marquez was leading, and like the wind turned and the cloud cover come over and lost miles out in front, lost front tyre temperature and crash coming into turn 4 here, you know. So, which we're seeing another Honda go down the road. Yes. Oh man, this guy, I feel for him. He's had some crashes on the Honda. It
looks like he's just had a technical issue here. Yeah, tech problem maybe for Mir.
Well, that's better than crashing. Not for the Japanese, but
yeah,
better for all.
That's yeah.
And that's at the end of the straight.
Talked about Marco Melandri's smoking rear tyre celebration here in 2006. That smoke pouring out of that top exhaust on that Honda RC213V.
You've got to have a good look on the racetrack. Check there's no fluids or oil down, because you don't want to be hitting oil at top speed on your way into Durham Corner.
Great to see Mir on the podium in Japan. Great to see Honda slowly coming back. What I understand is that they've made some progress in... Oh, there she goes. Just as he rolled out of the throttle. So yeah, that's they've made some progress in engine horsepower. So are they pushing these things to the limit a little bit more, and we're getting to the end of the season?
Yeah, potentially as well, running older engines in these free practice 1 sessions early in the weekend too. They do get to this weekend, I believe it is, introduce their final engine into the pool, but they won't be running that in this free practice 1 session. Remember back in Hungary when we saw 2 Aprilias expire in that FP1 session, so the fresh motors will be going in the business end of this weekend.
Yeah, both Hondas, the factory Hondas of Marini and Mir, were really frustrated to miss out on the podium in Mandalika last time out. Mir felt like his early crash missed a bit of an open goal. Felt like he had the pace to be in the hunt for the box. And Luca Marini, after that skirmish he had with Trackhouse Aprilia rider Ralph Fernandez, which sort of dumped him out of podium contention, he had a lack of adhesion flag then. It's being waved on that run down to the first corner. missed opportunity, massive missed opportunity, as Almarini described at Mandalika. He said coming into this weekend, the Honda is now a good enough fight to be in the top 3 hunt. Time to deliver, were the words from Luca Marini.
I got asked coming into the weekend who I thought my podium finishers would be, and Luca Marini was definitely a guy at the top of my mind. I just feel like everything's starting to come together for Honda, for him. He's really starting to show some speed. I reckon he can be there challenging.
All of a sudden, the way that Honda's going right now, we're getting a replay here of...
It's Marquez up behind Miguel Oliveira, I think that is, on the Pramac Yamaha, and I think they're going to perhaps share some words here later on. This is coming now through the southern loop of turn 2. Alex Marquez, who is going to top this free practice 1 session, unless his teammate has something to say about it, and he is with his final corner. Clearly not too pleased with Miguel Oliveira. So Fermin Aldeguer, winner of the Indonesian Grand Prix. Is he going to go from P1 in Lombok to P1 in Phillip Island? The answer is no. He's a 10th and a half adrift in third.
Jack Miller, though, might be warming some home hearts here right now, because on fresh rubber, brand new soft front, brand new medium rear for the Aussie. This could be a P1 lap time from Thriller Miller. 16th at the moment. Over the line he goes. He does go top. Well, that will put smiles on the Aussie fans' faces. A 128.2A1 on those fresh tyres. Jack Miller then snatches top spot later.
Didn't quite put a smile on Gino Boursoi's face, but must take a bit more than that.
We'll smile for him in the commentary box.
I'll be asking Quartararo to roll off a bit here and just give Miller his moment in the sun. Quartararo does go through in 5th place, so Yamaha's 1st and 5th, and it is Jack Miller at the Australian Grand Prix who tops free practice 1.
Stuff by the 30-year-old from Townsville. You know that if Jack's on the podium here on Sunday, there's going to be the mother of all parties in Poundtown Cows, isn't there? There he is, coming through turn 4, named after him 3 years ago, of course, here in 2022. That's where the Miller fan club, the army of 43 fans, are out in force. Boy, Jack, I'll buy you a Tui's.
I hope he doesn't go backwards on the track for that one, because that'll be another experience. But that's where his fan club sit as well at the end of turn 4, his family and everyone, they're down there. So yeah, Jack giving all the fans a good wave, and fantastic to see. I guess this has been the first session he's led this season.
Yeah, can't be too many occasions when he's been topped on a Friday. Well, we'll make sure we dig through the older record books.
I'm glad that's your challenge. I'll leave that one to you.
More on it.
I was close. I was only 2 kilometres out for the speed going through the first corner, but I cannot actually tell you when the last time Jack Miller would have led a practice session. But we will find out. Challenge accepted.
Yeah. Let me know. Thank you.
Pecco Bagnaia then, after what was a very shaky start indeed, quite literally a shaky start on top of that factory Ducati. It does salvage a 128.556, 7th place for the Italian, and in the mix, you have to say, less than 3/10 of a second behind Miller at the end of that 45-minute opener.
Better than it was looking. No question about that for Pecco Bagnaia. Alex Marquez then 2nd. Won't be sharing lunch with Miguel Oliveira after an incident which could have ended an awful lot worse than it did through turn 1. That incident is now under investigation by a former colleague of ours, Chief Steward, of course, Simon Crayfar, coming through turn 1. And they'll be, I guess, having a good look at the data traces to see there if Oliveira was rolling off in the middle of turn 1 with Alex Marquez right behind him.
This is a scary moment. Like, we know how high that speed is. Bertie will tell you, but yeah, no, it's just to be up. You know, if Miguel did roll out of it, that is really, really scary as you're the bike behind, because you're expecting them to accelerate and to rub the front tire. That could have been weekend ending right there.
I was going through turn 1 myself, you know, in my dreams, you know, then I woke up. Miller then, it is on what's been an excellent start to his home Grand Prix for the Prima Pramac Yamaha team. That leads the way, that 128.2A1, as we get our customary practice starter session underway. Then up from Alex Acosta, looking strong once again on the factory KTM. Mandalika winner, first time MotoGP winner last time out. Aldeguer was 4th. After putting 2 Yamahas inside the top 5. Matseki still struggling with some severe back pain. That horrible crash he had with Mark over in Mandalika. Well, he rounded out your top 6. Further down, Brad Binder, where we saw the South African. He had a little bit of a stint at the top of the timesheets, didn't he, for a trip? Mention the fact that Iagura, a track out a pulley rider, was declared fit yesterday. Of course, he was ruled out of his home Grand Prix in Japan on the Sunday, missed Mandalika as well. This all a legacy of a 260-mile-an-hour crash through Cavone in Misano, damage to his right hand. It was a tough start though to this Phillip Island battle for Ogura-san, down in 22nd place with a 130.7.
He's never particularly got much of a tune out of Phillip Island, it has to be said, even in his Moto2 glory days, fourth world champion last season. Best ever result here last year when he finished fourth in that Moto2 race, a very distant fourth behind the top three. Of course, a couple of years prior to that, he struggled to even score any points. Does a lot of his best work under heavy braking, does Ogura. Not a lot of that to be found around Phillip Island.
Well, put you on the spot then. You said you were asked for your predictions yesterday, and you were looking at Luca Marini as a possible top three contender. Who else is catching your eye?
I said Marini third. I thought Aldeguer and Alex Marquez. I thought the Grassini Ducatis would be hard to beat. So that was a guess coming into the weekend. And after FP1, I mean, those three guys are sort of towards the front there. I mean, Marini back in 13th, but doing a lot of race runs. But like I said, I think I've been impressed with Honda. It seems like everything's starting to move forwards for them, and it's great to see because they're a manufacturer that have had so much experience in this paddock, so much race results, so many wins. It'd be great to see them back challenging where they need to be.
Yeah, said several times, they are a sleeping giant. They were always going to awaken from their recent slumber, eventually aided by the concessions, of course. HRC are doing a great job. Some tight session that, wasn't it? Miguel Oliveira in 18th place, just a whisker over a second off Jack Miller. There was only 3/4 of a second that covered Miller down to Vinales' replacement, Pol Espargaro, in 16th place. Well, we have seen down the years some of the closest winning margins, the closest podiums, the closest top 10s, the closest top 15s. They all seem to tend to happen here down under in Australia.
In these fast-blowing circuits, they generally make for close racing. When it's stop-go, you get gaps in the field, and it's always hard to make up. But because of the high speed, the airflow, the time you can save, and the tyre wear you can save by sitting in a group, it really brings everyone close together, and it makes it look more like a Moto3 race. And hopefully we're going to get another one of them on Sunday.
In fact, the starts at the moment. I'm sure when they go racing on Sunday afternoon, every rider, when they pull up on the grid, it'll be a very good look to see whether there are any tear-offs under their tyres after Marc Marquez's famous barbecue off the line last year. No further action taken. They have had a good look at the Alex Marquez Miguel Oliveira incident and have decided that it was purely a racing incident and that Miguel Oliveira did nothing wrong. Alex Marquez may see it differently.
Obviously just a lot faster out of there, wasn't he? Yeah, it's still quite scary though.
Yeah, Oliveira ended that session down in 18th place. Still seems like we know that Miguel has his 2026 racing plans confirmed, stepping into the BMW factory World Superbike squad. It also seems as well he's kind of keeping the door ajar, still in some discussions. It seems potentially to be part of Aprilia's testing, the dual role for Oliveira potentially 2026. We'll see how that one potentially pans out as Jack Miller gauges the whole shot device on the factory Yamaha.
He did roll up to the front row of the grid there, Jack, so he's obviously confident, getting some practices. I like it. I like it. So isn't it fantastic how these bikes accelerate now? You know, back in my day, we didn't really think about lowering the motorcycle to do a start, but obviously what works for drag bikes, and the acceleration now 0 to 200 is so much faster because how they're able to lower those bikes.
Great to start there for Ogura as he left the grid. It's one of those as well where you don't brake particularly hard, if at all, for the first corner, so it's not the kind of launch down to turn one where you can get that front device unlocked again.
Well, Marco Bezzecchi fluffed both of his starts over in Mandalika, 8th to 1st in the sprint, and then of course the poor start in the Grand Prix, which dropped in behind Marc Marquez. Ultimately, saw those two have first lap contact. That was a bit better. That was a bit more like it, wasn't it, as far as Bez is concerned. 6th fastest in an FP1 session. Blamed himself for the poor start in the Grand Prix. Yeah, late arrival to the grid. As he was going through his usual sort of pre-start routine, by the time he finished, he looked up and it was lights out, and it was time to blast off. He got caught napping a little bit, did Ben. Of course, it was that put him into that position where he was tailing Marquez through those first couple of sectors.
Pecco Bagnaia then returns to the factory Ducati box. A bit of a roller coaster session for Pecco, but he does end it with a wave to the fans. For so many wearing red here, would have dearly loved to see the new world champion Marc Marquez do his thing around this spectacular Phillip Island circuit where he won here last year. His factory team's hopes do all rest on Pecco's shoulders here.
Just being informed that the Oliveira-Alex Marquez incident, at the time the oil flag was still out for the Joan Mir incident, and that was the reason why there's no penalty, because Oliveira would have seen the oil flag and slightly rolled out of it on the Pramac Yamaha. Alex Marquez, as Marco Bezzecchi did, comes to pole position for his practice start. All the confident riders, aren't they, in their qualifying prospects?
They're all MotoGP riders. They're all confident. They all believe in themselves. Trust me. The traditional bike swap there, and that's something you definitely want to practice around Phillip Island. I think the first ever flag-to-flag race was here back in 2006. Yeah, so it was the first one. So it's important to get that ready. And it isn't, like you said, the track is narrow, but the pit lane is very narrow here. So getting in and out safely can be a bit of a trick.
Famously saw a flag-to-flag race back in 2013 too, when Marc Marquez had the World Championship potentially to win. Of course, made something of a misjudgment with his team over which lap to come in and change. Of course, you do feed out into such a high-speed corner in the middle of Doom Corner 2, so it is particularly troublesome when we do have flag-to-flag action. Whether we'll see that on Sunday, of course, we'll have to look at the skies and find out at 2 p.m. Sunday afternoon.
Such a shame, as Chris mentioned, particularly for the Australian fans, not to see the newly crowned world champion here. One of his favourite circuits, anti-clockwise, of course, where we know Mark excels. A 4-time MotoGP winner here in the past. Quite brilliantly last year when he dropped all the way down to 13 on lap 1 after the issue with the tear-off. Super slow motion replay of Marco Bezzecchi.
Yeah, starting Indonesia was slightly faster than that, but not much.
He'll be on that pole position here. Q2 tomorrow morning. Quite sure exactly what the elements we're going to get thrown at us for the remainder of the weekend, but we'll enjoy the clear blue skies and some welcome sunshine while we can.
Great to see the rider and how much effort. Look how low he was trying to keep his body weight and keep it forward. I know there's a lot of devices on these bikes, but the rider still has a lot of work to do to get these things off the line. I mean, first gear probably still does 170 kilometers an hour at full revs, you know, so you're using the clutch for a long time to get them accelerating.
I do love Marco Bezzecchi. He's a proper character, isn't he? There, just a cheeky winker to the camera. Looked like he was grimacing in a little bit of pain. He did talk about this lingering back pain, which is carried since the big whack he took from Martin at turn 1 in the Motegi sprint.
I was with him yesterday, and a guy I know asked him a question. Are you challenging? Is your target third in the championship? He said, no, to be honest, you know, like, we're just going to do the best we can. I said, yeah, a couple more wins this year would be better, right, Marco? And he said, 4 more. So
he is a great character, Marco Bezzecchi. Wasn't he asked yesterday at the start of his media debrief about what he thought about the incident with Marky, and he just said, next question, please.
Yeah. Of course, we didn't have the chance to put those questions to Marco because of the pain he was in after that crash in Indonesia, but I think the pictures kind of speak for themselves on that one. Still smarting a little bit with the double long lap penalty, because he knows he's got a bike that he can challenge for victories with.
Jack doesn't look confident at all, does he? Bit relaxed there. I don't know about the moustache, but everything else seems to be going quite well for him.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Yeah, a great way to start his home Grand Prix for the Australian. Know that there's going to be so much support here this weekend for John Kelso, of course, a former podium finisher in Moto3, centre age. Just what a weekend he had here last year in Moto2, finishing on the podium in front of his home crowd. An honour that Chris, of course, knows only too well. Did it here himself in front of the Aussie fans. Matt Miller. That's the perfect way to kick off the weekend.
Well, it is, and like you said, he won here in Moto3 as well. Sensational battle that was back in the day, and been in the podium in the Premier class. So yeah, he would love to step on that podium again. And the potential's there. Like, they've got a bit of work to do. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, if Jack can be in the fight, he's going to have the elbows out. That's
so many riders here this weekend, potentially 21 of them this weekend, looking at this as such a big opportunity. No Marc Marquez, no Jorge Martin, Miguel Maverick Vinales, Marco Bezzecchi with 2 long lap penalties to serve on Sunday afternoon. Someone is going to grasp the big opportunity to win the Australian Grand Prix this weekend, and it could be anybody.
Yeah, while the top cat's away, the mice will play. And it's Jack Miller that leads in front of his home crowd in FP1.
Jack Miller from Alex Marquez, Pedro Acosta third, Yamaha Ducati KTM, Fermin Aldeguer fourth from Fabio Quartararo, second of the Yamahas, Bezzecchi top of Aprilia in sixth, ahead of Pecco Bagnaia, whose roller coaster session did ultimately take him up to 7th place. 2023 winner Johan Zarco 8th, ahead of Fabio Di Giannantonio and Brad Binder, who led early on. Ralph Fernandez 11th, ahead of Joan Mir, whose engine went pop late on. Luca Marini 13th from Morbidelli, who crashed at turn 1 earlier in the session. Bastianini next up from Paul Espargaro, his Tech3 teammate. Alex Rins, Miguel Oliveira, Lorenzo Savadori and Sonkia Chantra. Michele Pirro, of course, on Marc Marquez's Ducati for the next 2 weekends, 21st, ahead of I Agura.
Well, the home fans already happy then here. We'll say our thanks and goodbyes for now to Chris Vermeulen. Always love Chris's analysis and insight, and our door is always open, mate. And if you feel like joining us once again this weekend, well, then you are more than welcome.
No, thanks, guys. Always good to catch up, and I'll be working for Channel 10, so showing it all on TV this weekend. But yeah, I'll pop in again for sure. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Great to have you with us, Chris. To all of you watching at home, love Chris's insight in that 45-minute session as we get a look at Alex Marquez's work. What about Pedro Acosta? Top front medium rear tyre was his preferred combination. And throughout that session, Acosta looking strong out the gate there in third on the RC16.
Acosta did not change tyres, as you can see, through the entire session. From Aldeguer, much likewise, and he'll be pretty infused and confident. The fact that his fastest lap of the morning came on his final 18th lap of the session. On 18 lap old tyres, he found a 1:28.466.
Never started off pole position in 3 Moto2 starts here, did he? At Fermin Aldeguer. Alex Marquez, well, he had his issues in turn 1, Miguel Oliveira in that first sector, but he does lead it ahead of Aldeguer and Quartararo.
Jack Miller doing a lot of his best work on the way to top spot in that second sector.
Fernandez on the track house, a pretty rapid in sector 3 ahead of Quartararo and Alex.
So we had a Ducati in sector 1, a Yamaha in sector 2, and a Aprilia in sector 3. Brad Binder's KTM quickest through sector 4.
So we're underway then in round 19, the Australian Grand Prix, as we tip into the second half of our Asia Pacific Tour. And the home crowd hero has already produced a thrilling performance. Phillip Miller, Jack, top rider in FP1 here in Phillip. He leads the way with a 1:28.281. We'll see you for practice this afternoon.